I actually appreciate a mother who is vulnerable enough to admit that they are struggling.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to another vlog on YouTube and podcast on Spotify by the Fit Minds podcast. Coach Mariah Jean, Coach Lolly, and Coach Chloe Jane here. Sorry if you can hear her snoring. That's the Frenchie snort. It's always the case, hey, you want to start a podcast and she wants
There's
to
always something.
cuddle up with you.
Yeah.
This is very appropriate for today's topic, the pressures on mums, pressures on motherhood. This is probably going to be a pretty touchy one, but do you know who mentioned this to me to do? Who suggested it?
You said it was your neighbour.
My neighbour, yeah. Shout out to my neighbour who listens to my podcast.
Hi.
She's probably like, yes, she did it. Yeah, she's like, why don't you do a podcast on this? And like, obviously, we do a lot of nutrition, fitness, we do mentality, and I think we've got to cover it. Obviously, Chloe and I are not psychologists.
No.
You know, we're not qualified to give psychological advice. We can do a bit of mentorship, bit of mindset stuff here and there. Obviously, there's some behavioural stuff that we do with nutrition as well. But this is just some real talk from two mums. It seems to be the elephant in the room. It's like this thing that's happening to us, has happened to us, continues to happen to other mothers. And I guess it is that there are honestly so many pressures on us.
And it
from every
starts the minute you conceive.
Yeah, the minute you fall pregnant. So I guess we should talk about maybe our personal experiences. I get funny about doing that because sometimes I think like obviously everybody's experience is different. Just because it happened for us doesn't mean it's going to happen for you. Or it might feel different for you as well. You might have different opinions to us, and that is absolutely okay. Something I'm really big on is not trying to, yes, we have opinions. Opinion is different from fact, scientific fact for sure.
I think the subject in a whole is very opinionated in itself. It's very, there's no factual components behind it.
Not behind pressures on mothers, that's for sure. So I guess we'll touch on, where do you think the most pressure, I know what the answer to this is, it's a bit of a trick question. Where do you think the most pressure on mothers comes from?
Other mums.
Right?
Yeah.
Like immediately other mothers.
In my head, I was like, shit, am I going to get this right?
No, you did. The pressure on mothers. Other mums.
Yeah.
Yep. And do you think it's a competitive streak in other mothers?
I don't know. I think I know from me personally that when you become a mother, you can become more opinionated. You
feel strongly about
your
things.
Instincts kick in.
Yes.
Protect my children at all costs. And I think a lot of mums put their blinkers on and go my way or the highway.
Yeah.
You know,
becomes a war almost with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and it can happen. I think for me personally, as a mother, I have a couple of things where my blinkers are on, and a lot of other things, I think, because I am quite laid back.
You're open-minded about.
And I understand shit happens, and like we've spoken about, every mother's experience is different. Every child is different. The way that you handle things, parenting, etc., it's all different.
Yeah.
I'm open to that.
Yeah.
I have my own personal opinion, and if you want my opinion, I'll give it to you.
That's if you ask for it. That's a big thing because a lot of the time it's
get
stuff you're getting where you're like,
all I don't get.
Unsolicited advice. That's probably the big thing is like when people tell you do this, do that, or they judge you, or they judge other mothers in front of you.
Yes.
It happened to me at childcare just before. I was literally picking up my baby, not picking up my baby, feeding her. And, you know, without dobbing anyone in too much, one of the ladies was like, oh, I saw one mother breastfeeding her child for this many years. And I thought, oh my God, you know, why are you doing that? And I'm like,
I mean, like personally, I think I would stop at a certain point. But like if I was to see it, I wouldn't be like, what the fuck are you doing?
It's like, who cares? Not my problem.
Yeah, but 100%.
I think that's probably the biggest take from this entire podcast before we even get started. Is it any of your fucking business what another mother is doing to the child, unless they're abusing them in public, beating the crap out of them, and you've got to report them to child services?
Funny you say
maybe.
We were in the shopping. I was in the shopping centre with Sienna the other day, and she was causing a ruckus or something, and the man behind me was like, "Oh,
please don't tell me you said like in my day or some
no,
shit."
She's like, "Oh, she's being naughty." I was like, "Yeah, you should because I think oh no, that's what I did. She was like walking in the middle of the pathway.
Oh, yeah.
And I like gently pushed
you need
her
to be considerate of other people.
towards the side. And but there was a gentleman behind me, and he's like, oh, yeah, Mum's moving you out of the way. And I was like, oh, you should see what I do to her at home. And then I was like, fuck. I was like, I'm just kidding, by the way. In my head, I'm like, ha ha ha, I'm funny. And then I was like, shit, you can't say that nowadays.
Honestly,
because he looked at me like.
Something I've really liked about our generation, millennial generation, and even, you know, Gen Z is coming through, is that we have a little bit less of a give a fuck, right?
Yeah.
Like we're getting to a point where we're like,
Yeah.
I don't care. You want to have Cheezels for lunch? Like, I don't care what you're doing. And it's not careless parenting, but more a case of, because like I was given a parenting book from one of my lovely family members, and honestly there were some parts in that and I was like, man, I didn't know that. Like, hell, that's friggin' interesting. I was given a pregnancy book as well. Honestly, knew nothing. I knew nothing. Knew nothing, and other than stories other people had told me, which varied from, oh, you need to do this and blah, blah. And it was just so confusing. And there's just stuff that you learn on the go, like
Yes,
you learn on.
I think that's one thing I can take away from parenting in itself is that there is no 2 days that
Parenting teaches you how to parent. You don't really, like, you can't go the other way around.
It's not something, I feel like books and shit like that are useless.
Yeah, because your child's going to be so different to the next. A great example, Lila's cutting teeth at the moment. She's on her third tooth. And we were like, she's really cranky this last week, like barely sleeping up until stupid o'clock in the morning. I can't communicate what's going on for them, so it is a really difficult time. And, you know, we're just like, oh, maybe she's teething again. Surely not, because we've already got the two central incisors. Maybe it's the top two. So here I am looking at these top two teeth, you know. Maybe there's no sign of this breaking through. This little mofo was decided to cut an incisor, next to it, like what are they called? I
think it's a canine.
It's called a something incisor, and that's a canine. It's called I can't remember.
Yeah,
I was looking at a tooth next to the big tooth.
Next to the big tooth.
And it was like, and I'm like, and then anyway, this is broken through, and I'm like, motherfucker. And so you're not following the standard investment to go in this order. No risks of that happening, mind you. She's just randomly doing this when it happens. And there's a lot of experiences in motherhood that make you realize you're not prepared for anything. You can think you're prepared, but you're not. You're never going to be fully prepared.
I tried to delve into the whole like gentle parenting thing.
Yeah.
Sienna, it was actually, we've been having a lot of issues with Sienna's behaviour at the moment. She's 5 going 6 and thinks she's 15 going 16. Yeah. And we were in the shops. I had a really bad day with my nausea. I was fatigued. Just
pregnant with a 5-year-old, 6-year-old.
And we'd gone into Kmart and she'd asked for a toy. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. Explained to her that we didn't come in here for toys, tried to do the whole... No. We managed to get out of Kmart and I was like, oh, I've got to quickly pop into Coles just to grab a few things for dinner. And she wanted to sit in the trolley. Bearing in mind, my child is about 18 kilos now, cannot sit in the trolley.
No.
And I was trying to explain to her that she's too heavy for the trolley now and that it literally says, oh no, that wasn't even it. I grabbed one of the small trolleys.
Oh, right.
That they can't sit in.
Physically can't get in, there's no seat.
And there is a sign on the trolley handle that says no sitting in it.
Yeah.
And I kept showing that to her. So cannot sit in it.
Yes. Safety problem. Yeah.
So she threw herself on the floor.
Nice.
And I just stood there.
Yeah.
And there was an older lady that sort of like looked at me and just stand there and smile. And I said, Sienna, please get off the floor. And it was actually quite funny because there was a mother that was also dealing with a tantruming child. She goes, it must be a day for the Siennas. And I was like, oh, yeah, she gets it.
It's just a mutual understanding. You just nod to the other mother.
But it's in situations like that. If that had been me 4 or 5 years ago and Sienna was throwing herself on the floor, I would have been embarrassed as hell. Thrown her over, like picked her up and just given her what she wanted. Yeah. Whereas now I'm like, no, no, it's not okay.
Yeah.
So I stood there, and she eventually, I was like, would you like to push the trolley?
Yeah. It's stuff like that, like being ready for tantrums and all that type of stuff that you're not going to know until you get there.
But then again, saying that again, there's days where I will be like, all right, throw over my shoulder, fuck this grocery shopping. I'm not doing
And
that.
that doesn't facilitate any judgment from anyone.
No, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from it, is that I feel like as a parent there comes a point where the judgment of people around you and people's opinions around you, you don't really care.
Yeah. You have to get to that. You have to get to that point where you just don't give a fuck about what people think about what you're doing. And to be honest too, if you do that, if you try and please everybody all the time, there's always going to be difference in opinion.
Yeah.
Like people listening to this podcast might be like, oh, and I did this with my kid, and he did this, and this. And I mean, the specifics of it as well is like the judgment you receive isn't just the way you parent, but like the small decisions you make, right? What type of birth you want to have, right? You know, whether you want to, this is going to be pretty like broad, but whether you want to vaccinate your children, whether you don't want to vaccinate your children. Admittedly, obviously there's other ramifications for not doing that, because yes, there's impacts on other children. I understand that. But the big picture is that there are all these intricacies, whether you want to sleep your child in a cot, whether you want to co-sleep.
That's a big one.
And what baffles me is that people get so involved in your personal life and they try and tell you, we shouldn't be doing that. I know you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, but we did this and it worked really well. And you know, my baby slept 13 hours in a row. My baby tied her own shoelaces by the time she was 18 months old.
Yeah. It's like that Bluey episode. Have you watched it? I know you wouldn't have watched it, but there's this Bluey episode, and I think it is a really good representation of parenting.
Yeah.
And
it's the one about the sleeping in her big bed?
No, so it's when I don't know whether it was Bluey or Bingo. I think one of them was, they were in childcare, and the mum was comparing Bluey's progress to another kid, and it became into like this big battle sort of thing. Not between, the other parent was oblivious, and the Bluey's mum went and visited this friend and was like, oh, is this your first child? And she actually turned around and she was like, no, it's my 8th or something ridiculous. And
wild.
And it's like, she's like, you're doing a really good job, all this sort of stuff. And Bluey's a really good.
It's great.
It's a really good program for parents.
You think about it, it actually is for parents more than it is for kids.
I know. There would be times where Sam's like, I don't want to watch it. I'm like,
It's life lessons, and it's certainly, I think that, like I felt the pressure as a first time mum. You know, there was this intense amount of pressure postpartum from all sorts of directions. It was
especially being in the public eye as well.
Oh God, yeah. Breastfeeding was a big one. What are some other things that it was, the way she slept, to the point where like I won't even tell people whether we cot or co-sleep anymore because it's fucking irrelevant. Like, to that person, they don't need to know what we do, what our routine looks like. It is absolutely pointless for me to share Lila's routine, to talk about her nap times. If mums want to do that on socials, that is okay. Like I've got again, I don't judge other mums for their decisions, I am so far removed from your family. It is not my place.
You don't have the I don't
have the energy for it
either.
You
don't have the energy all the time. It's like,
no.
Okay.
I am so happy if you're happy. Yeah. And also, even if you're not happy, I'm sure you'll find your way. If you want me to support you in any way or be there for you, I will. And I've got my mum friends, and if they come to me and they're like, hey, look, especially like we had some heaps of breastfeeding drama, right? Breastfeeding has been the hardest, most taxing, most mentally draining, physically traumatizing experience, and yet in the same breath it has been beautiful, but it has been honestly the hardest part of raising Lila has been breastfeeding, because there was that huge chunk, and you were here for it, where we had no idea what the fuck to do. We were just stuck. The advice we were getting was pretty crappy.
It was very condescending.
There was no urgency. There was, anyway, long story short. And even in that same breath, as a breastfeeding mum, if you formally feed your baby from day one, I just salute you for being a mother and for feeding your baby. And the whole fed is best thing, absolutely. Yeah. When a mother decides to do whatever she decides to do.
I did it for my mental health.
That's right. Yeah. The direction we go in, at what stage, whether it's you stay on for 4 years or you finish at 8, or you decide, I know some mums who've never breastfed and don't want to because they don't like being touched.
Yes.
Babe, that is okay. That is so okay.
I think it's also important to mention, yes, there's lots of external pressure from other women, but I think also
Societal.
As mothers, we are very guilty of our own internal pressures.
Yeah, our own ideas of what we think we have to do.
That comes to mind, you know, I struggled really bad with postpartum depression with Sienna. I struggled with that initial connection.
Yep.
And I remember feeling so much guilt.
I'm ashamed about it,
Not because of any mother being like,
you should love your baby instantly.
It's because I would see other mothers and
the bonding
and the connection, and I put that pressure on myself. I made myself feel that guilt when in reality I didn't need to.
No.
It's one of those things.
No, remember when I told you, it was a couple of weeks ago, and I said, this is going to baffle people, but I knew that my role was to look after the little potato. Like, I was like, yes, like, you know, fight or flight, adrenaline. It's like, you know that you've got to attend, you hear the cry.
Yes.
But that first 24 hours on those pain meds almost went into psychosis. And I couldn't pick my baby up.
Yes.
I went to pick her up and I couldn't pick her up because it was scaring the crap out of me, and I realised it was the pain meds throwing me off completely, but went off them and I was fine. But it's a shock. It's a huge shock to go from being one person to being 1.5 of a person.
Yeah.
Because they are an extension and they are stuck to you. But remember I said to you that when I was pregnant, I identified with the pregnant belly and these movements and everything, and that this was this little personality.
Yeah.
And it kind of was like, okay, this makes sense to me. And because you got 9 months to get used to that, right?
So, I think it's because you spend so long
pregnant. So it's like eventually that's you, and that this is cool. I understand this. I didn't connect because it was a C-section.
Yes.
I didn't even see her come out. It was like a cloth and then she came out. I didn't connect my baby that they pulled out of me with the baby that was in my belly until around, she was like 6 to 7 months of age.
And then I also made the point to you that I had an epidural.
Yeah, and so you didn't actually
feel it.
Yeah.
Whether or not that has a connection.
Yeah, but I believe that because you think you see stuff like when people perform magic tricks, for example, and like they can't visibly see how it happens, so they can't conceptualize what it's actually real.
Well, I remember like when I was pregnant, I was like, oh, for sure, I'm gonna bawl my eyes out when she comes out. I turned around to my mum. Mum was in the room with me. I looked at her and I said, holy shit, I just pushed out a baby.
It's a shock more than anything.
Mum's bawling her eyes out, and I'm over here like,
what happened?
What the fuck?
Yeah. And that's all okay. Like there's this, we're kind of forced to believe. But I remember I was doing a post about like the difficulties of motherhood, because it's such a fine line on social media. You want to show the highlights, but like you're not going to post like a video of your baby crying and holding onto your legs, and like, because that's confronting for people and people don't want to see it.
And social media has a way of twisting things and making you out to be, oh, she's not attending to her baby. And
why are you filming her crying? But then also you get, why are you only posting good things? You can't win. So please assume my kid cries, my kid's teething and we're not sleeping properly, like, and shit is hitting the fan most of the time. And then other times it's beautiful. And so it's a big roller coaster.
She is a well-behaved kid though.
Yeah, she's great. Like she's going to childcare now and she's loving it. And she's, adaptable. Like apparently they said she does really well. That's fine. And hitting her milestones early and all that stuff. But I'm not about to be like bragging about my kid like my kid's better than other people's, because it's still come with its challenges. Like her crawling early, we had no fucking, the whole house was not prepared.
We're like, what?
She's headbutting walls all the time.
Yeah.
But I remember posting something about the difficulties of motherhood, right? Like just trying to be a little bit transparent, a little bit vulnerable, a little bit real, And I won't say who it is, but another coach in the industry commented on it and was like, children are a blessing from God or some shit. And they were like, be grateful for every moment you have with them. And you hear those statements like, you wanted this baby. And what pisses me off so much about motherhood is that people view it as being so black or white. You either must be absolutely enjoying this experience and never complain about it and love your baby so much unconditionally, and you must be perfect and you must bake cookies from scratch and you must be this fucking exemplified perfect mother,
put on a pedestal,
survive on no sleep and be nice to people and don't yell. And or you're an absolute fucking nutcase and you're being locked up in mental health ward for months on end, or you're on meth, and don't get done stints in mental health ward. There's been a few times throughout Lila's postpartum where I've been like, maybe I need to go back, you know? And that doesn't make you a less of a person. It makes you a fucking human being. Like, and
I think, like, this is personal opinion, I actually appreciate a mother who is vulnerable enough to admit that they are struggling.
yeah.
If someone was to turn around to me and be like, I think I do need to check myself into a mental health ward, I would be on my hands and knees.
Yeah. Like, this is what's safe for you and your baby.
Yeah. Like, that is a mother, I would rather see that than a mother struggling and putting on a brave face.
Or even so as well, putting herself at risk and you know, like, and this is the darker side of things, is that we really don't understand the volume and many women are struggling postpartum. The instances of postpartum depression, they say it's like, I don't know what the statistics are, they're quite high, but I think it's even higher than that because some people are just not reporting it. There's also a lot of domestic violence that's occurring postpartum. There's a lot of situations where mothers are under significant pressure and then obviously they're sleep deprived, their partner is sleep deprived. Alex and I have had many fights postpartum, obviously. Nothing has gotten to a point where it's been out of control or anything, but this is all part of the process. And if you know, show up and say that's not how it should be and you should be doing this and you should be doing that and whatever, and that wasn't how it was for me, you either are masking something, you've forgotten it completely, or you had a very good support network.
I was going to say, if I hadn't moved back in with my parents when I did, I probably wouldn't be here.
Wouldn't be here, that's right. And it's dark and it's sad, and it's, I think that, as we've said, that the pressures, there's a few major pressures internal from other mothers, because I think it's that competitiveness, but also, as you've mentioned, like the maternal side of us that comes out thinking we've got to parent everybody else's babies as well and be right. You know, it's such a sliding scale. And then the third thing is the societal stuff, where we have like a ton of bricks just sitting on our head, the pressure to go back to work quickly, or in my instance, in my case, it wasn't even a pressure, but was probably more like just a set of circumstances. You know, you didn't
have the support.
Well, the resources.
Support and resources.
And also didn't really have the framework. Like, it's like, you know, anyone who runs a company and a business, for the other coaches out there who've gone through postpartum, like, you understand this. You are trying to keep your business afloat, do all the things, whilst looking after a very small human being.
It's tricky.
And on next to no sleep, and you're breastfeeding, so you're deficient in micronutrients, you are just absolutely knackered.
Run down to the bone. And
then the government gives you 16 weeks maternity leave and says...
I was the same. I went back with Sienna at 4 weeks.
To work?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I was running my own business.
Yeah.
I was in the beauty industry.
Yeah. And when you're in that position, you're forced because
you have a choice.
You can't give up your clients, because if you give up your clients, you've got to build up a client base again, and they go to other coaches or other lash techs.
Yeah, that situation.
So you're cornered. And do you think a major part of this is that we are in a group of people, mothers and women who are mothers specifically in Australia and America, there are a few other countries inclusive, who now as well, our support networks, our family, they no longer live near us because it's not typical for families to live really close.
I'm going to be very lucky.
But even then, you know, I'm sure that even back like a long time ago, we had actual villages.
Yes.
Not just our mum and our sister.
So it was
and
a community.
An entire community. It was like, if you look at, even if you go into lots of other different countries, they still have villages where they still, not just one mother will raise a child.
Do you know what's sad is that 9 times out of 10 it's third world countries.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not, it's people that have the bare minimum.
They've got it right, figuring out how to raise children, because they've got 10 or 15 women in this village passing this baby around. Some of them will also...
I think that reminds me of, like, how important it is to have, like, a good, solid support network around you in terms of friendships.
Yeah.
You know, like, utilising that as your village.
These days, a lot of the support is all online. Like, I'll admit, a lot of the in those early days, and I really want to say thank you to all of the women who reached out in the early days, and even now, because it's not just the early days we need you. There are days now, even, and weeks now, and it's for the first few years of their life, that even longer, where you need people to check in on you. So it's like, what we're trying to say is, we don't need people to give us advice with parenting or tell us. what teething gel
Just
to
be
use.
in
My corner. If I say, holy shit, we're going through this at the moment, I have no idea what the fuck to do. What did you do? Have you got some suggestions?
Yeah.
Or even
That's when you provide
that's
your
when you
advice.
provide them or whatever. But it's like the whole like, do you need a solution or do you need empathy?
Yeah.
Do you need someone to listen to you
Yeah.
and just hear you out? Because the judgment is definitely, as I said, like what was the judgment of the just literally like an hour or two ago. I saw a woman breastfeeding her child at 4 years old. And I was like, in my head, I was like, as you said, don't know whether I would get there. I don't even think my supply will last that long. My poor little shitty supply. But I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've never been that type of thinker. I don't go like, you know, oh, you give your kid this and you shouldn't do that and whatever. It's well, Lila didn't want lunch the other day. And what did I end up giving her? I gave her a block of cheese, a biscuit.
Oh, that's right. She had the best lunch.
Yeah, a
It was
block
like
of cheese, a biscuit, and a fruit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was like, you obviously don't want what I've given you, and that's okay, and that's going to happen, and I'm not going to pressure you. Here's some cheese to chomp on.
It was, I was
She
very
did eat
jealous.
way too much cheese, though.
She had a runny poo later.
The next day. I was like, that's my fault. I gave it to her. And I'm a fucking nutritionist, right? Like, here is a nutritionist literally saying to you.
It's like some nights I give Sienna McDonald's.
Yeah. Like, but you don't have to have everything perfect. You don't have to, you know... As I said, I'll be that mother that bakes cookies from cookie dough. You know, like the rolled up cookie dough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there ain't no way in hell that I'm going to be putting together the sugar and the... You know, I've got ADHD. Like, this is going to be a fucking mess by the end of it. You know,
you don't enjoy
shit
it.
flying everywhere.
It would be different if you enjoyed baking.
I used to. And then it was a hyperfixation, and then I just kind of got over it. Now I just don't have time or patience for it. And I will pay someone else to make those cookies. Yeah. Are there any other pressures, do you think, that you felt like... Because there's honestly... pressures,
How long do we have?
Yeah, it could be like when you decide...
I think, like, currently...
Yeah.
Being pregnant, there's... like, it starts, right? Like I said in the start of the potty. It starts the minute you conceive.
Yep. Why is it anyone's right to comment as well on, like, your body and what you put in your body?
Weight gain.
Yeah.
There's not enough weight gain.
Yep.
There's exercising.
You must gain exactly the perfect amount of... What?
Yeah.
Not enough.
Yeah. Exercising. Eating certain foods like sushi and all these sorts of things.
Yeah. There's health recommendations, right? Like, of course.
Yes.
There's got to be something there. Otherwise, we've got no information to go by, no guidelines. Mm-hmm.
But it's just... what I don't appreciate is being slammed.
Yes.
Right? Like, I follow this lady on Instagram, and she's currently pregnant as well. And she did like a week in a day, and it was like a sushi and something else.
Oh, you see the comments on the...
And like the comment, like I looked at that and I was like, oh, I probably wouldn't have sushi given
the recommendations.
But the thing is, like, but then on the flip side of things, I've still been having my steak medium rare. Come for me.
I did do that too.
I dare you. Yeah. I still have my occasional runny egg where I'm like, oh, it's runny.
I also did that.
Oh, shit, damn.
Oopsie.
I don't like hard-boiled eggs.
Well, it's funny. All through pregnancy, all I craved was like soft runny eggs.
I know. I'm like, I'm not...
And like turkey and ham and shit.
I've been having ham.
Yeah.
I mean, there'll be some times where, like most of the time, I'll fry it up.
Lila only came out with 3 legs. You know, like it's not that bad.
Yeah. she's yeah. But you know what I mean? And it's like, I am entitled to my...
This is not us giving recommendations to people to eat ham and eggs and whatever in pregnancy is.
It's
just saying back off when we're pregnant.
It's like, I'm entitled... The thing that fucks me off is when I don't give my opinion.
Yeah.
But you have to give me yours?
Yeah.
I'm like...
Yeah.
Cool.
And as professionals, as nutritionists, we can legally give... you know, the standard guidelines, which are textbook guidelines, because that's all we've got to go by legally.
Yes.
Right? But like, if it was our own bodies, and we're not recommending this.
Yeah. Say, for example, someone came to me and it's like, Chloe, I'm craving runny eggs on toast. I'm so-and-so many weeks pregnant. What would you recommend?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, the guidelines state that you can't, but... if you want to, then that's up to you.
It's your decision. It's not illegal to eat runny eggs.
Yes. So it's like, and a lot of the guidelines, I did a little bit of research on it. A lot of the guidelines are out of date and for those third world countries that don't have access to food regulations
thank you. Yes.
and food restrictions and
pasteurized cheese, for example. Not a single cheese in Australia is legally
you
allowed
can't have
unpasteurized
yeah.
cheese. The cheese thing is stupid
Yes.
because cheeses in Australia are pasteurized.
Yes, exactly right. So it's like, I think it starts from there.
Yeah.
And then you then delve into birth.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, you did it naturally.
Yeah, that's a delivery. Yeah.
You didn't do it naturally. You opted for a C-section. Why would you do that?
Oh, I got questioned so much about the decisions
Yeah.
I made with life. And no one, it felt like I was on repeat all the time. Like I was like just repeating the same shit of like, well, we made this decision. And I'm like, why am I justifying myself
Yes.
to you? You know, because she was breech, we were going to have a vaginal birth.
Yes.
Because the hospital said what they could.
Yeah.
Then she grew too big.
Yes.
She's
too long.
Too long.
Yes.
And the position she was in was not favourable for a breech birth. It was
Yeah.
the least favourable.
Yes.
It was the least favourable for an ECV as well to turn
Yes.
her around. There was a low success rate.
Yep.
And I went, you know what?
At what cost?
At what cost? I was very frightened for her. It was my first baby. And here I am, rattling and kind of justifying. And I had people telling me, but you know that you don't have to do a C-section, you can do a vaginal birth. And I was like, I'm aware of that, you know. And then the other way around, you should do a C-section because vaginal birth is really dangerous. So it was really...
You get stripped of, I think, as a pressures internally and externally, like we talk about.
Yeah.
Strip you away of
The enjoyment.
your own rights.
Yes.
Right?
And choices, yeah.
And choices.
Autonomy.
And I think the biggest takeaway from this podcast is to, unless the advice is asked, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, 100%. Stay out of people's inboxes with advice, please. Unless they're like, hey,
Help.
what's a good brand of cot?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm looking for XYZ.
Yeah.
Can anyone
Like,
give me any
I remember
recommendations?
with Sienna, I was in this like mummies page and I spent a lot of time on that page asking questions.
Yeah.
I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
And really pushed me to go to daycares to be able to, oh my goodness, we've got to go to like daycares and stuff like that to be able to reach out to
mummy
other
groups.
mothers. But the minute that I walked in there, I got judged for being a 19-year-old mum.
Yeah.
So I reached out on these social media pages and asked for that advice.
Yeah.
I feel like if it's good for you, then give it.
Yeah.
But do not then force that upon them.
It's like you don't walk into a doctor's surgery and every doctor comes out going, I know the answer. And you're like,
Yeah.
I haven't even asked you yet.
Yeah.
Like, no, you book the doctor's appointment, the doctor gives you the
Yes.
advice. That's how this thing works.
Yes, yes.
If people are on social, this is why I often don't post
Yes.
much about what's going on with Lila anymore.
Yeah.
Because my experience was that if I posted anything about some little struggles we were having, my inbox would just fill up with
I think as well,
contradictory advice.
It's tricky finding that balance because, like, I know personally as well, like, if I can find someone that I've related to on that level,
yeah.
I immediately want to be like, oh, yeah, like, I've been through that as well.
Oh, that's different. Relatability, I reckon, is different.
Yeah.
Different. Because obviously, like, we've done it heaps,
Yeah.
right? We went through this too, and I went through that too.
And I think a lot of, like, not a lot, there is some women that do it out of genuinity, if
Yeah,
the word.
yeah,
and they're
absolutely.
like, oh, look, I went through that and this really helped me. Like,
I like it when people say, like, I went through this, you know, this happened,
Yeah.
but you can also do whatever you
Yeah.
like. There's a few options.
yeah, I think there's a way in which you should approach giving advice.
Don't bark down people's throats.
No.
Because you never know what they're going through. And also, like, I'm sorry, but our only qualification when it comes to motherhood is just being in the
a
middle
mum.
of it.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, I don't know what it's like having a 5-year-old. I couldn't tell you the first thing about that stage of life because we're not there yet. And I wish I could be a little bit more relatable in that sense to be able to be there for you.
I think, like, I'm excited coming into this second baby.
Yeah.
Because I do have a little bit of understanding, and, you know, like, there's things that I personally want to do differently.
Yeah.
You know, like, but that's coming from opinions of my own.
There are so many, it's probably the wrong saying for it, but there are so many ways to skin a cat. Like,
Yes.
there's, you know, raising children, there's no exact science to it. And I mean, no matter how much people will argue that there is an exact science, there isn't. And there's no, textbooks are like, how would I put it? It's like one shade of paint. Like, there's the whole fucking rainbow going on over here that they're not going to be able to account for.
Yeah.
And I've only been a mother for 8 months. I still don't know what I'm doing. So I cannot, don't come to me for advice.
I have been a mother for nearly 6 years and I still don't know what I'm doing.
We're not here to give you advice. If you want to talk to me about breastfeeding struggles, I can let you know the things that that I went through and that we did to increase supply. And, you know, to be honest, none of the heebie stuff worked. It was medication that ended up being the
or
thing.
if you're struggling in terms of feeling like you are being isolated and that you are feeling alone in a certain situation, and we're sitting here being like, oh, we went through that, you are more than welcome to reach out to us and be like, hey, I'm going through this.
Yeah.
Not even asking for advice.
Yeah. Just, hey, I'm letting you know I'm having a shit day.
I'm going through this.
My kid's being a butthead.
Yeah. And
I hate to say that too.
It gives an opportunity to be able to give you that validation that what you are feeling. I mean, regardless of the situation, we would do that anyway. Yeah. But
it's an unspoken rule. I think we need to get back to this girl code.
Yeah.
Where it's like
supporting other moms.
Support each other relentlessly.
Yeah.
Of course, little tips and tricks here and there, but whatever you do, I always speak, and I always try to approach it from a really, really gentle place.
Yes.
In a way where I'm like, I want to help you, but also by the same token, if you don't need that, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, it's like that. I look back at the situation with you and the breastfeeding hold.
Yeah. That would have been hard.
Yeah. Well, I said to you, I was like, yeah, look, this is what I did with Sienna because it helped me with the position of my nipples.
Yes, the football hold.
The football hold. But if that doesn't work for you, that's fine.
I love that. I love the way you did that. It was beautiful.
But it's like certain situations like that where you're like, this helped me.
You helped me figure out how to burp Lila as well, because I couldn't burp her one way, and then you were showing me like sitting her like this and give rub.
Yeah.
Now she self burps, which is fun.
Yeah.
Like there were so many times exactly, Chloe, where you were there for me, and the way that you delivered the help was so open. It was so like, here's an option, take it or leave it, because you could see me kind of repeatedly struggling with the same thing. And that, I think if you're a really close friend with someone and they've welcomed you into their home and they're like, hey, I need you.
And I think that becomes easier over time because, like I said before, like I've been through it myself.
Yep.
And I almost feel that I have become the sort of person that I would have wanted when I first became pregnant. And I think that's
such
important.
a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful being able to, I call it passing it on almost. And I noticed a little trend for my mummies who listen to the podcast. When I got pregnant, started following, they just popped up on my page naturally. Lolly, you are being very invasive. Sorry, guys. My dog is, speaking of being a mum, dog mum life. I had a lot of people I started following who had already had babies, like a couple months prior. And then I noticed that some people who were pregnant started following me and watching my stuff, given that I just had a baby. And what I noticed was the unspoken rule is that you are there for other mothers going through it. Right? Who are going through this in real time. And once you've just been through it, you then give that advice to other people in a way when they need it and when they, you know what I mean, when they're like drowning.
Yes.
You're like, you know, if you just went through the 3 to 4 month sleep regression.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, I just went through the 3 to 4 month sleep regression. Mummy that's just had her baby that's 1 month old, she gets to 3 to 4 months and she goes, hey, I saw you went through the 3 to 4 month sleep regression.
I actually had a friend that I became really close with and actually lived with that did the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'd posted in one of these mummies chats. I don't know what it was about. I think it was about birthing.
Yeah.
My birth experience, and she messaged me and we connected on that. And she ended up messaging me like 2 weeks later being like, I gave birth. And I was shush. And we ended up forming a really nice connection and living together. And
it's nice. Yeah. And it does. Good stuff can come from it. You know, this isn't saying don't tiptoe and walk on eggshells.
No.
I've got some great mums in my life that may not even necessarily be seeing me in person, but that message me online. I've got mums that were pregnant at the same time as me at the gym that had a baby before me and that, you know, have just been so reassuring. You know, when I've gone through these really big struggles, they've said things like, you know, it gets better and it's going to sort out and then at this stage things feel a little easier, and so it's so lovely to feel that warm hug rush over you where it's like, I'm not alone. Other people have been here before me, and not just that, they're kind of close.
Yes.
They're not too far from me, and I can always reach out or have a little vent or send a voice recording.
Yes.
But I'm still not at a point where I'd be comfortable joining a mummies group, because I do feel like I might be throwing myself in the pen there, like where I'd be like, you know what I mean?
It's like
scary.
I've had that conversation with my mum this time around, and I'd said to her, look, I am concerned.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have a big friendship group.
Yeah.
And I know how important that is now. and to have those people around you.
Yeah.
That isn't Josh and that isn't my family.
That's right.
So I think I may end up joining a mummies group.
The mummies groups, honestly, like, I think if you can get into the right one, or certainly even just find your people in it, that's where...
I think it's becoming, like when I look back at mummies groups when I had Sienna, I think they're a lot different now.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of Facebook groups that just catch up and grab coffee.
Yeah. It's not actually about talking about...
It's not in an organised room
No.
that it's like, oh, we're meeting up here this week.
And you'll find, honestly, coming from an almost second-time mum and a first-time mum, as we said earlier in the podcast, you find what works for you and your baby and your family and your dynamic. And, you know, Lila has a later bedtime. She goes to bed at like 9:30. And people are like, oh, that's late. For who? Not for us. She gets enough sleep. We get to go to the gym at night. It works in with our routine. It would not work if it didn't. I can't wake up at 4 a.m. I'm sorry. Neither can my partner.
Yeah.
So, you know, and she's fine. She's doing great. She's thriving.
What works for you works for you.
Yeah, and it's I couldn't.
I think it's about becoming more open-minded.
Yes.
Not going in with your blinkers on, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
And yes, you are entitled to your opinion. We're not invalidating that.
No, God, no. You can think what you want.
You're allowed to have your opinions on things.
I'm not here to try and convince people of other
But I think it's about respect.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Honestly, the one word that would summarize this whole scenario is respect. Just respect one another. Don't make it a fucking competition.
No.
It's not a competition, all right? I'm competitive as fuck. And guess what? My dough, like my rolled cookie dough,
It's going to be better than
they're
yours.
going to taste better than your homemade cookies, motherfucker. And you won't even know. I'll lie and I'll tell you they were homemade.
Exactly.
I'll tell you they're homemade and I made little shapes of stars out of them, and me and Lila made them together. But
Cut out like
in
some big
reality,
fancy
I literally
shit.
just was like, hey Lila, roll these into a ball and smack them on a tray.
Bob's your uncle. Yeah.
If you do homemade cookies, by the way,
My mum does.
I'm not judging you. Please make me some motherfucking cookies.
Mum does.
Right? Because if you're going to go the effort to make homemade cookies, you better be sending some to me.
I know.
We've made a little pile of dog fur here on the couch. It's beautiful. Yeah, I appreciate that. Anyway, we could go on forever for all the things that you
I feel
can
like
be
it's a
judged for.
subject that you can...
The other one is when you introduce solids and how you do it, and whether you do baby-led weaning, whether you
Like
do
we've
puree.
reiterated through every phase of motherhood, there is going to be some form of judgment, and I think it's the way that you deal with it. You will get I think it's the inevitable, right? Going in knowing that you are going to get unsolicited advice.
I love it when you get mothering advice from men.
All right, go freaking push a baby out of your penis and then come.
I just nod and smile when I get advice from men.
Yeah,
I'm
and
like,
I think that's the way to do it.
Look, they've been parents too, but they'll never be mothers.
No.
And that's the thing.
I think that's the way to handle any situation, you know. Yeah, it's going in knowing that you're going to get advice that you don't particularly want, you don't particularly give a fuck about, and you just go, oh, okay, yeah, no worries, thanks for that.
Just do this and then tune out and think to yourself, what am I having for dinner?
Oh, I do that anyway. I don't even have to think about it. Josh will be coming home ranting and raving about something that happened at work, and I'm hungry. I'm not going to cook.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We think mothers are incredible. We'll finish the podcast with
give
that.
my hat off
Speaking of which, I got to go breastfeed my baby.
And I need to eat.
Speaking
of food.
I go to childcare. I'm that crazy woman. I'm going into childcare to breastfeed my baby. I thought it'd be a lot harder than it is.
Well, it's just around the corner.
It's really not that hard. I was thinking, oh my God, how's this going to work? And I literally just drive 5 minutes down the road, breastfeed the baby. Problem is when I get there, all the babies all want me because they all come up to me and they're like, and I'm like, I can't take you home. You're all lovely. It's like going to like a puppy farm.
Petting zoo. Which one's mine?
Literally, I'm literally scared because I'm short-sighted. I'm like, where's my kid?
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to go in and breastfeed her. And no, I'm not doing it because I'm not like jumping on socials like, I'm going to breastfeed my baby every 3 hours. Look at me. Woo, I got a medal. I'm just doing it because I really don't know what else to do at the moment. Because I'm like, that's the other thing, like childcare. Like, keeping your baby at home or having them in childcare. Granted, these pressures aren't as bad anymore because most women are expected to go back to work, which sucks.
Yeah.
But I do think that's societal. But, you know, I've got like a half at the moment. We'll eventually transition to full-time childcare. And I am not going to lie. Having my baby in childcare has helped to give me my sanity back. And I am not going to pretend like that's not a thing.
No.
I'm not going to be like, oh, but I wish I could keep her at home still because I have a career.
Yes.
And it was holding me back from being able to fully immerse myself and entertain her. And so it's like I had to make this
It's
decision.
providing you balance.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, you know, if
You're
it was,
able to
if it was a man
separate.
in our position and a man was like, hey, I need to get back to work, there would be no question about it. So anyway,
That's a whole other topic.
it is a whole other topic. There's just so many things. So whatever it is, whatever you feel judged for, whatever it is that you feel pressure for, you're doing amazing. Like, I don't know who you are. We see you. We think the mothers with multiple children.
That's going to be me soon.
Holy fuck. Pets account, okay? If you're a fur...
Fuck, I'll have
If
4.
you're a fur mama, honestly, people ask me all the time if they don't have children, is having a kid like having a pet? I'm like, very similar. Similar in some
different
ways,
ways.
in different ways. They're puppies for a shorter space of time than what babies are, but different challenges. You can't take pets to the shopping centre with you. You can't,
No.
you know what I mean? Like, they've got to be left at
But you're
home.
still worrying about them.
You worry about them. So, yeah, we see you. We think mothers are incredible.
We salute you.
We think you're incredible, whether you home make cookies, whether you use the cookie dough, whether you shower your baby, whether you bath them, how many times you bath them a week, whether you bottle feed, whether you breastfeed, whether you combo feed, whether they eat the crumbs off the floor. We don't care. And we love you and we appreciate you and we see you every single day. And makes me emotional talking about it because...
Yeah, I nearly teared up before.
Yeah, mothers, we take on
A lot.
so much. We don't need judgment. We don't need
Just
criticism.
spread kindness and love.
We
and
need love and
positivity.
support. We need people to smoke a cone. No, I don't smoke weed.
Take a hit.
We
every
need
now
people to
and
just
then.
chill out. No,
I can't actually smoke weed.
I can't either. It makes me green out. Yeah, I've been years.
I
think I was 15 the last time.
I go on like 16. A trip.
Yeah.
I'm like,
We're not saying you actually have to smoke weed, but basically,
yes.
you know,
We diverse.
take a leaf out of the book of those who grew up in the 60s.
Yeah.
Which is our parents. It's a time where, you know, you're trying to navigate so much. So, and if you are a judge, stop it. Feck off.
Yeah.
Stay away. And if you listen to this podcast and you even remotely want to say something judgy,
They'll be like, oh my God, they have
no,
ham.
I just think that in that you should have said, no, that's it.
Yeah.
We're going to walk out.
We don't care.
We really don't.
I think that's the point that I've hit with parenting.
Yeah.
I don't care.
0 fucks to give. Well, you care about Sienna. You just
Nah.
don't care about other people's
Nah.
bullshit. Nah. Don't give a shit about a kid.
Come for me, dare ya. I don't care. Nah, obviously, I feel like I don't care about your opinion.
No, thank you. That's where it is.
Yes.
That's the last thing. Okay, we're going to finish up. I think it's almost an hour or so. I don't know how long this podcast is. Yep. Hope you have a great day, evening, wherever you are. Chloe's back on the podcast.
Hi.
Thanks for coming back. Just had a long ass hiatus there. There's a few weeks where we had sickness and stuff. And
Yeah, like sickness and then
your kid's sickness and then
it was like sick.
it's always the case. It's one thing after the other. The whole point of this podcast.
Yes.
You get hit a lot through parenthood. It's the toughest hood
and
you'll ever live in is
downs.
parenthood.
Yes, that's it. Get her in the hood.
We'll be back with another episode next week. Let us know if there's anything you'd like us to do a topic on. I think someone was saying something about fibre. That might be the next podcast. Otherwise, we can do some more mum shit.
Yeah. I enjoy talking about it.
Yeah, agreed.
Been there, done that. No, I'm kidding.
Been around the block. I have not.
That's all right, but that's the thing.
I'm still so green to this.
It's okay.
I sometimes pick up my child. That's right, I have a child.
I still do that.
I'm responsible for a whole human being.
I still do that.
And it baffles me because I'm like, there's more years of this, isn't there?
Yeah. I still do that. Literally at the shops.
You're going to have a teenager one day.
So are you.
I know, thank you. Now I'm crying.
No, we were literally at the shops the other day and I was talking to this cashier and she was like, I was like, oh, you know, the small chat that you make with cashiers. I was like, oh, have you got a busy day today? And she was like, no, I actually have a doctor's appointment. I'm 8 weeks pregnant, rah, rah. And she, funny story, she turned around to me and because I was like, oh yeah, me too, rah, rah. She's like, oh, how far along are you? Blah, blah. She goes, oh, is it your first? As Sienna is standing next to me and we'd had like a little chinwag before because I bought her a push pop, a lolly. Ooh, kill me. But yeah.
Push pops are the shit.
I know. Them. And then, she's like, oh shit, she's your first, isn't she? And I was like,
it's okay. It's okay, babes.
Don't worry, I forget all the time too.
Yeah. I mean pregnancy brain as well. I don't know whether it starts that early.
I don't know.
I didn't really get pregnancy brain. I got breastfeeding brain.
I couldn't talk yet.
Yesterday.
Yeah. I was just like.
Was I talking to you yesterday?
No, but just like in general, like a conversation.
Couldn't get the words out. It's funny, your brain can think, but your words can't. Yeah. I can't word.
Like, yeah, I can't vocabulary today.
We are finished, I promise. Okay. Bye.